Uganda has two categories of crops, fresh produce and the processed ones which undergo on-farm processing like shelling, winnowing, drying and secondary processing, like maize flour. The second category is prone to develop toxic compounds known as aflatoxins.
Produced by molds known as aspergillus flavus. These molds love low moisture content food. That's why they mainly contaminate food which is dried at home.
Professor Achille Okaya, a food science expert with specialty in aflatoxins at Makerere University, says the most affected crops are grains like maize, groundnuts, cassava, sorghum, dried foods including fish and fruits, eggs and meat.
Causing the biggest problem right now.
Uganda, like the rest of East and Southern Africa, has just the right climate with temperatures between 15 and 32 degrees centigrade and rainfall of 750 to 2,200 millimeters per annum. This growth is fertile ground for the growth and multiplication of the microorganisms which produce aflatoxins.
Especially after harvesting, we use the open sun drying method and the produce is placed on bare ground and these molds come from the soil. And remember, they love low moisture content. So as you dry, you're reducing the moisture content, you're exposing them to the ground.
He also says that the storage structures do not completely prevent the grains from picking the moisture.
Besides that, the mode of, for example, shearing is through beating. And when you beat, you destroy, you damage the grain. And once you damage, you are creating avenues for the molds to enter.
Professor Kaya urges people to be cautious of milled groundnuts.
Those which are broken, those which are diseased, those which are shriveled, and those actually have got high levels of aflatoxins. And once you mill, you're exposing all the foodstuffs.
Aflatoxins can cause both acute and chronic toxicity when consumed in large or moderate amounts over time. In Africa, they cause 40% of the daily disease burden.
The kind of staple foods that we consume mainly are those which are highly contaminated.
Authorities in World Health Organization say aflatoxins may cause stunting in children, loss of weight and make them susceptible to infectious diseases. Professor Kaya further affirms that these reduce the body's immunity and can enhance HIV and increase the chances of having malaria parasites. There are fears of the toxins making vaccines ineffective, according to the Partnership for Aflatoxin Control in Africa. With stunting, however, there are fears that a child on treatment could become worse if they were to be taken to a health facility where the food contains aflatoxins.
The food that is given to our children in the therapeutic feeding centers, including Mwana Mujimo, has been checked. And the standards of the aflatoxins is at the level that is specified.
The Director General Health Services in the Ministry of Health, who also chairs the Food and Agriculture Organization National Codex Committee, maintains that thorough checks are done by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards.
And so they have standards for aflatoxins, for groundnuts and for other cereals that is already set. And if any cereal has levels of aflatoxins above that standard, then it is not passed for human consumption.
Michael Danford, the acting representative of the World Food Programme in Uganda, is quite familiar with such standards. Given his experience at WFP, the UN agency feeds over 90 million people in about 80 countries on food that is susceptible to aflatoxins.
We distribute over 60,000 metric tonnes of food annually in Uganda. We procure over 41,000. Last year, in fact, I think we spent over $17 million procuring commodities in Uganda itself. So we can't take any risks with regards to the quality of the food that we are supplying.
Michael says WFP has experts who analyze the products before they are procured. This is in addition to the checks it carries out with UNBS and the Ministry of Agriculture.
WFP procures at a minimum East African Standard Grade 2. We won't accept any commodities less than that.
Through its program Purchase for Progress, P4P, WFP is working with smallholder farmers to ensure they produce quality yields.
Quality food so that WFP can buy them, quality food so that others in the market can buy them.
Ugandan farmers have so far supplied $2 million worth of grain to WFP.
We're providing a lot of education, but also we're providing equipment such as drying sheets, plus there's means by which they can measure the moisture content.
However, since they are unavoidable contaminants, most countries have set allowances for aflatoxin levels.
The European Union allows 4 parts per billion aflatoxin levels in maize, groundnuts and other produce, whereas our Ugandan National Bureau of Standards allows 10 parts per billion. And it is very difficult to find foodstuffs actually containing less than 4 parts per billion.
WFP would be able to procure a lot more commodities within Uganda itself if it can be sure that the suppliers, the traders, will be providing minimum grade 2 standards.
But despite the strictness in quality standards set by WFP and UNBS, Professor Kaya says many people are ignorant of aflatoxins and hence do not know how to control them. What's the possibility of killing them off in food though, during preparation?
The usual cooking temperature is at about 100 degrees Celsius. The temperature that destroys them is 420 degrees Celsius. You end up with ash or charcoal.
The best way is to prevent them, and if possible, sorting the moldy groundnuts or maize from the rest of the good seeds.
Aflatoxins don't smell, and you cannot see them. They can only be detected in the lab.
The African Union formed the Partnership for Aflatoxin Control in Africa, PACA, to manage the problem on the continent. In Uganda, Professor Kaya is the focal person. He says our research carried out in the country found high levels of aflatoxin in maize, groundnuts and sorghum, posing a threat to health, food security and trade. Florence Salimba, NTV.